Thank you, thank you. I have to pull up my notes. And I did all the sculpting, but my friend Rebecca Sampson here took all of those stunning pictures. So they look a little different when I shoot them on my phone. Okay, my name is Julia. Oh, you can't really see it. That's okay. I'm an artist, a writer, and an art therapist. I have always had the luxury of being surrounded by art. My mom was an artist. All my great aunts are artists. Family time was doing art class on the weekends. So I have a little bit of a head start in learning how healing art can be. But what I would love to do today is share some of that knowledge. So most people I know don't know what art therapy is. I get a lot of people say, what's that? Or does that mean you color while you talk? And yeah, it does. It does mean that, but it's also a little bit more than that. So I kind of like to start, these are just pictures, they're not going to get anything from the slides, but first I'd like to start talking about what is trauma, because it's a lot of reasons that we go to therapy. And ever since therapy kind of made it to Instagram, it can be a little bit hard to like discern, you know, am I traumatized right now from talking? Yeah, I am. I'm just kidding. No, but you get the point when I say that. So it's fun to say. But what is trauma actually? So to break it down really simply, trauma is a response to experiences that overwhelm our ability to cope or feel safe. So simply put, when our body stops being able to deal with something and we no longer feel safe, we register that in our body as trauma. When we experience trauma, the brain and the body go into survival mode. So what that means is very basic. What do we do to survive? This part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, starts to slow down, which is our thinking, our executive functioning. We don't want a lot of energy to go into thinking when we need to survive. We need to just be acting. So the amygdala part of our brain, the like danger center, starts to overactivate. And the body's stress response takes over. So this causes the body to stay on high alert even after the threat is gone. So it's really hard after trauma to feel calm or safe, even when the actual event is over. So sometimes when they study the brain and the body after a trauma, your body will continue to make the same amount of cortisol as it was experiencing, say, during the car wreck. It continues to do that even after it's done, which takes up a lot of resources. So over time, the brain and body get stuck in this pattern, constantly reacting as if the threat is still happening. So let's see, so to summarize that, trauma traps the brain in this. Almost I think of it as like if Spotify kept playing the same song over and over and you couldn't like get your phone to unlock. And in this state, thinking and feeling shut off, okay? And because we can't process it, our body stores it for us. So because we can't make sense of it logically or speak about it, our body hangs on to that info. So lucky for us, creativity is the opposite of survival. So this is where, okay, good, I'm on the right page. So now enter art therapy, my favorite thing in the world. If you go on to peer-reviewed articles that study art therapy, a lot of them will say like, well, this hasn't been researched a lot. And if you talk to an art therapist, will say art therapy was around before research. Before science, people were doing art to heal. In all indigenous communities, there was grief circles of drumming and imagery making and all of those things. Those were around before science. So humans have been using art to heal since before time. And art therapy is the opposite of survival, because in order to create, we must feel safe enough to play. So the whole idea of that is we don't get to play unless we feel safe. So scientists have determined that it takes 400 repetitions to create a new synapse in the brain, which means if I wanted to convince you that you were safe and we decided to repeat that over and over in therapy, I am safe, I am safe, that would take us 400 times. With play, it takes 10 to 20. Yeah. Art making engages the sensory and emotional parts of the brain that trauma disconnects us from. So it allows us to allows us without words to express things that are happening in a way that feels safe because we are engaging in play while processing difficult emotion. So it's all happening at once. Play strengthens neuroplasticity in the brain. So that's the brain's ability to form new synaptic connections and reorganize, activating areas of the brain associated with primary reward, lighting up regions linked to meaning making and interpretation of reality. So when they do like an MRI on the brain while it's reading poetry or writing poetry or creating art, all different parts are lighting up, the parts that we can't access when we're in our alarm state. So again, it gives us a safe way to engage with difficult emotions, which is what we need to heal, because feeling is healing, but we don't get to feel when we're in danger. Play lights up brain circuits related to connection, regulation, and exploration, which are all essential to healing trauma. We have to be able to connect, explore, and regulate at the same time. So play, which is art, does that. And because they've done a million studies on this, it's so fun because 45 minutes of art making a day instantly lowers cortisol. So when they test like your stress hormone in saliva, it's immediately lowered after 45 minutes of making art. And regular art engagement, like CreativeMornings or going to an art museum, actually extends the lifespan. So they do long-term studies where they find people who engage in art, like visiting anything once a month, they less cognitive decline, less heart issues, and they actually live longer. So
we're being really healthy right now.
Yes. So this, you're healing. Just kidding. Okay, so now the next part that I love is clay. So to just recap, during and after trauma, the connection between the brain and body become dysregulated, leading to a sense of disconnection from physical sensations or emotions, which we basically cut off from our parts of ourselves, right? And the way that we can heal this is actually through touch. So touch is one of the most fundamental human experiences because it is the basis of secure attachment. So what that means is before a baby can talk, it's exploring its world through its touch, okay? So touch leads us, before we have words, touch is how we experience safety, trust, attachment, and our whole external world. So a baby's brain very literally knows I'm either touching my caregiver or I'm not. I'm either safe or I'm not. That's how a baby experiences the world, and then that continues to grow. So touch is our first sense of security and safety. And clay work, based entirely on our own sense of touch, has the ability to reconnect us with the core of our identity. So let's break that down really simply because it's fascinating. When you touch clay, your body and brain are getting information from haptic perception, which is your touch, fancy way of saying touch, unlocking feelings or sensations that are hard to express with words. So the clay helps bypass the need for talking. It actually bypasses the verbal part of the brain and allows you to feel and process things non-verbally, which helps people heal from emotional wounds or physical wounds without without words, enabling access to pre-verbal or non-verbal levels of experience, which traditional talk therapy can't reach. So clay is for everybody, but it really helps with like attachment wounds. So maybe things that we are not connected to verbally, young, but also maybe reliving an experience is too traumatic for the brain and it actually can't access language. It also is really helpful with that, which is actually segues into my next slide. If anyone's ever read Body Keeps the Score, it's a very famous How We Store Trauma in Our Body book, kind of the OG. So that psychologist ran a bunch of tests on service members. So service members coming back from active military duty who had experienced either a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, or PTSD. And when they did an MRI, they noticed that the service members, when they were reliving an event or feeling triggered or having a flashback, the speech part of their brain went completely offline. So it didn't light up at all, similar to a stroke victim when they lose speech. So this part of the brain was completely disconnected, shut off. There was no engagement or movement there whatsoever. So what they found was that the words for their experience literally didn't exist. They could not access them. They were not even there. So they gave these service members clay materials to create masks, physical representations of their inner experience. And one service member said he was finally able to make visible what was happening inside of himself. And another shared, I'm often asked what it feels like to have PTSD or TBI. In the past, I've been at a loss for how to describe these feelings until I made my mask. So through repeated safe clay work, participants showed improved regulation, a stronger sense of self, greater capacity for tolerating sensations, which is really significant, being able to improve our ability. It's like a rubber band, being able to stretch and be able to tolerate a little bit more and have a bigger window gives us more space to access hard feelings. Increased ability to use symbolic imagery and deeper emotional integration. Another study, kind of separately but on the same study track, a study of clay art therapy done in Parkinson's patients found improved mood, elevated self-expression, and stimulated and coordinated physical sensory motor usage, so better ability to use their hands and things like that. Let's see. Did I do this right? Yes, I did. Okay, all of that to say, when we make art, we are healing. And when we make art in a group, we are healing the world. And we cannot heal in survival. Our brain won't allow it, but we can heal in softness. So that ties up this part of my presentation, but I am gonna play a video that from me as an artist, where I kind of incorporated writing, clay, healing for my own work.
High Fire by Julia Karrys. I think about cremation from time to time, like when I'm looking for a book and remember my mom's ashes are in the box next to the poetry collection. If you look it up, you'll learn bodies burn at around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, turning to ash after a process of vaporization, calcification, and grinding what's left, the bones, to a fine sand. I know it's gross, kind of like finding out where your meat comes from. If you keep going, you might discover clay burns at the same temperature as the body, at around 2,000 degrees. But once clay is fired at this temperature, it's permanent. There are no ashes at the end. The higher we fire the clay, the more permanent it becomes. Fired clay can last forever, explaining its frequent discovery as the last remaining piece from ancient civilizations. It can be buried in the ground and still exist thousands of years from now. Psychological research and ancient wisdom will tell you clay replicates touch. It is the closest medium to mimicking the way humans form attachments, offering a tactile connection that mirrors the bonds we share with one another. In clay field therapy, the physical act of working with clay helps express and process emotions related to attachment. Clay's malleability and tactile nature are seen as comforting and grounding, which can evoke feelings of safety and connection, much like the comfort we receive from secure attachment figures, like parents or caregivers. Touch is the basis for secure attachment, connecting us to our earliest memories and even forming our ability to handle the world around us. Clay has the ability to help us regulate our nervous systems, much like a mother does for her child. Maybe your mother stresses you out now, but at one point you used her nervous system to regulate yourself. When we touch clay, our ectoreceptors and our interoceptors become activated, providing instant feedback to the brain. Through haptic perception, we have nonverbal access to these psychological and sensory motor processes, otherwise interrupted by trauma. Simplified, when we touch clay, our body and brain get information through our sense of touch, unlocking feelings or sensations that are hard to express with words. The clay helps bypass the need for talking and allows us to feel and process things non-verbally, helping heal from emotional or physical trauma without words. Now, it begs to be asked, in a world where my mother no longer exists, am I merely trying to create a permanent version of her? Do I seek to touch clay because I live in a world where I can no longer touch my mother? Are the aging female bodies filling this room all a subconscious attempt at creating a version of my mother no fire can incinerate? You can light these bodies on fire and they will double down in their existence. Even if I throw them away, they'll stay on this earth longer than my mother or yours. Is my art a futile search for a loophole to loss? One more failed attempt at resurrecting the dead? One thing about me, I just won't learn. I just won't fucking learn. In my desperation to find answers, I turned to clay to create permanence, the form of a mother no one could pry from my grip. But in all the kneading, pounding, and smashing, after hours and hours of stained fingers, dusty clothes, and cracked hands, I didn't find my mom. Only an acceptance of her being gone. I wanted to fight, even a war I knew I wasn't going to win. But in the end, in all its time-worn magic, clay surrendered me to her absence. In building 100 permanent pieces to add to our world, I learned we all turn to dust. But maybe, just maybe, one day our ashes turn to clay and we become permanent here. Mother Love by Julia Karrys, from Death Do Us Part, a collection of poetry. I love you like you wouldn't believe, like I'm the sun and there's no corner of you unloved or untouched by light. Like I'm the ocean and there's nothing I can't consume. Like I'm the moon and I'll always be waiting exactly where you left me. I love you like you wouldn't believe because I love you like I can't even believe. Ashes, Ashes by Julia Karrys, from Death Do Us Part, a collection of poetry. It slips through my fingers. Desperate, I try to mold it, form it into memory. The creases, the dips. I rack my brain on how to bring you back. I try to be with the living, but all I search for is the dead. Daughter Love by Julia Karrys, from Death Do Us Part, a collection of poetry. I miss you like you wouldn't believe, like someone carved the sun right from the arms of the sky, like the ocean caught fire and evaporated into mist, like the moon closed her eyes and the world went dark. I miss you like you wouldn't believe because I miss you like I can't even believe.